thank everyone for making this happen on a Monday night. The library's closed Sundays during the summer, so our usual day doesn't work too well. So I appreciate everyone being here. I know it's hectic and it's Monday and everything. Today we have actually a kind of a special guest speaker, so I'm excited about that, or to present to us. As you know, next week I'll be opening the city council meeting with a non-Christian opening. So I'm very excited about that. Thanks. So I thought it'd be interesting to have Scott Ehrisman come and just talk to us a little bit about city government. And I know throughout this whole process I learned a lot of things, and I think a lot of people have a lot of questions. And so I don't really want to talk about me and talk about whatever. That's great. We like to learn stuff. And yeah, so. And thanks, Scott, for coming. Even before you
I was actually really happy to hear that she was going to be able to do the invocation. And I went to a city council meeting when I found this out, and I told the city council during public testimony that the invocation has never, ever, the purpose was never to be about religion or Christianity or any kind of religious sect, and explained to them, I think some of them were pretty surprised, some of them probably didn't believe me, that Benjamin Franklin is the one who came up with this, because there was a lot of arguing and a lot of fighting before they met during the Congressional Congress. So we bow their heads, get along, and it actually worked for a while. I mean, they'd get along, their sessions would last 7 to 8 hours without a break. And there's a lot of fighting and a lot of arguing. And Benjamin Franklin was a deist. I don't know if you ever read the book American Life. It's about him. It's an easy read, and it's fantastic. And it touches on his life, and he was a deist almost his entire life. And when he died, pastors and rabbis from every religion you can think of came to his funeral. He was so well respected, but never had a religious view. A deist is I consider myself one, it's someone who just says, higher power dropped in at one point in time and then just left. And so they don't believe in religion. And so I informed the council that the invocation was not about religion, it was about getting along and having a peaceful moment before you start the meeting. Like I said, some of them look surprised, some of them didn't believe me. But it's great that they're allowing her to do this. I think there's been some really bad invocators. I think there's been some pastors who have been very fair about what they're doing. They know that they're not up there to preach about Jesus. And, they were very fair in their language and what they were talking about. Let's all get along here. Some of them, I've been watching city council meetings for almost 10 years, so I've seen almost every one. Some of them really go on a pretty high and mighty, Holy Spirit, Jesus Christ, everything else, coming down. Last year, this one is one of the most entertaining ones. If you ever have a chance, watch the budget hearing, or the budget announcement by the mayor is on Thursday this week. But you have to go watch last year's. They invited the pastor from the Multicultural Center. And it wasn't that he spoke English, and he did his whole thing in English, but his English wasn't very good. It was kind of broken up. And he went on and on and on. I think it was about a 10-minute invocation. And it was about sheep and shepherds, and there was you gotta watch it. I mean, it was hilarious. I kept looking it up a couple of times, and the mayor was not happy at all. He had to steal his thunder. He's the one that likes to go on and on and on about things, and this guy just went on, and he started talking about soup, and that's not what the invocation's about. It's about a time where government officials get together, have a peaceful moment for the Pledge of Allegiance, and move along. But I've never been in favor of getting rid of the invocation, but I have been in favor of, because I totally believe in freedom of speech, but I have been in favor of limiting it to what can be said and what can be done up there. promoting a certain religion should not be what the invocation is about at all. And like I said, some pastors have been very good about it. Some have just gone off the boat, said, I'm here to give a Bible sermon. And so that's my experience with that. Otherwise, I've been blogging about city government since 2006, every about 8 years. It's an interesting beast. I joked that I was going to get a bumper sticker made before the last election that said, I never thought I'd say I'd miss Munson, because I was kind of hard on Mayor Munson, but this mayor has, and I don't know what your opinion is about Ether, but this mayor has been very untransparent in a lot of things that he's done, and he's been very successful at a lot of things he's done. The Home Rule Charter, I don't know if a lot of people know what the Home Rule Charter is or what it is. That's our charter. It was established, I believe, and if someone can help me in the crowd, I think it was 94. It was by a vote of the people. They used to have a commission similar to the Minnehaha County Commission, and the commissioners and the county commission, they all have their departments and they're in charge of different groups, and that's how the city commission was. They decided that the commissioners had too much power, or they had too many duties, so they decided to get rid of that and give the mayor most of the power, and then the council has, somewhat veto power or whatever. But they're really supposed to be a legislative body and supposed to be the checks and balances against the mayor, and they're not always that way. If you read their campaign finance reports, they all get, the rubber stampers all get the same money from the same people that the mayor does in the campaigns and stuff. So we all know how that works. I'm sure anybody who follows government, that money has destroyed all politics. Doesn't matter local, but it's going on here, and I think a lot of people don't understand that it's going on a lot. And I don't know about money under the table, but I do know that if you read the campaign finance reports, these people are getting big checks from the big wheels in town. It's happening all over the country, though. My thing is I kind of stopped blogging about national politics, and I do a little bit of state, but I mostly do city, because you can make a difference. You can show up and you can say things. They may not always listen to you, they may not always do anything about it, but you have to realize all government is local. And we could sit here and we could complain about the president, we could complain about the senators, all we want. It's not going to do any bit of good. When here in Sioux Falls, we have the opportunity to actually call our representatives on the county and in city government. And I have many great conversations with many of them. I have some of them call me and ask for advice. And would John Thune ever call me and ask for advice? Would even the governor ever call any of you and ask for advice? No, it's kind of nice because these people, you can call them. And I have to admit, most of the city councilors, even though they might not agree with you on things, they will talk to you. There's a few that just, they're warming seats. But most of them will talk to you. And that's a nice thing to have that kind of contact with your local officials. But if anybody's got any questions, that would be great.
I was just wondering what the structure of this city council is. How long are the terms? How are they divided up among the city?
They serve 4-year terms. So does the mayor. They can do 2 terms in a row, and then they can leave, and then come back and do it again. Kermit Staggers is doing that right now. He was on the council for 8 years, and then he left for, I believe, 2 years. And then he's back for another 4-year term. He'll probably run again. He's really well liked by the citizens. The media and the other councilors may not like him, but he's very popular. I don't know if a lot of people knew this, but when he ran for city council the first time, his first 4-year term, I can't remember who he ran against, but he won pretty good. And then his second term, he was unchallenged. So that says something about the kind of work he does and how people trust him. Knocks on a lot of doors, talks to people, goes places. Like I said, he's one that will tell you if he doesn't agree with you. ain't gonna lie to you and say, oh, well, everything's gonna be okay. No, he's not like that at all. But, they do 4-year terms. What's very strange too is a lot of the mayors that we've had over, the past 3 mayors never served on the council. They've just been outsiders. There was a lot of people that were surprised that Heath became mayor the first time around because he was such an outsider and never served in government in any capacity. But when you spend 3 times more than your competitor, like I talked about money in politics, it's pretty easy to, and he was a hell of a campaigner. I was laughing one day. I saw him walking down the sidewalk on 14th Street with all his brochures in his hand, and he was trucking down the sidewalk at about 9 in the morning. And I came by the next day at the same time, and Kermit was trucking down the sidewalk with brochures in his hand. So those two were chasing each other and following each other pretty good. But did you have a second part of that question at all? It's 4-year terms, yes.
How many are there?
There's 8 city councilors.
Is it divided by the city or is
It's divided by, there's 2 at-larges, there's an A and a B, and the whole city gets to vote on them, and then the rest are districts. Yeah. And the districts are weird. They've moved them around quite a bit. Central used to be mostly just Central, and I'm trying to remember how long, probably 2 or 4 years ago, they played this little trick because they get tired of the Kermit Staggers getting here. So they kind of redistrict the Central and they pushed it into Lincoln County.
Sounds like Ehrisman.
Yes. And so they kind of slipped it into Lincoln County so they get a little bit more wealthier people besides McKinnon Park in there. But yeah, it's broken into district, but it doesn't really mean anything. The councilors say that all the time. I mean, they're a council for the whole city, so you can call any of them, and any of them, can choose to respond or not. But I said they should just get rid of them altogether. They should have 8 city councilors that are at large, and the whole city gets to vote on it. It would be a much better. It'd work a lot better. It'd be fairer, I think, too. I've also suggested that the Parks Board be elected by districts too. The Parks Board is mostly, and we'll go into some other boards here. A lot of people don't know that. Mayor appoints a lot of boards. A lot of these boards don't do a lot. So it's not that big of a deal that one guy says, you can be on this board or you can be on this board. The Parks Board is one of the most powerful, it is the most powerful appointed board in the city. And most of the people who get appointed to this board are not from all the walks of life we are from. Developers' wives, it's the upper echelon of the city. It's not the, little Joe Blow. Now, anybody can apply to be on these boards, but if you don't know the mayor, your opportunity and your chance to be on the board is not good. And the reason I think that the Parks Board should be elected is not just for that reason, but they control, I believe it's an over $30 million budget each year. And they are volunteers that are appointed. And they do not record their meetings. A lot of boards have their meetings at Carnegie, like the Charter Revision Board, and they're recorded. And they hop their meetings around. And it's hard sometimes, unless you're following on the website, to know where they're doing and what they're doing. And they're making some really big decisions about recreation in this city. And it's pretty much the mayor's friends making decisions about what goes on in the park. Now, everyone loves the parks, and I think the parks are great in this town. But when you have a volunteer board that's in charge of a $30 million budget, that's pretty huge.
They operate, I've attended park board meetings for the last 8 years. And like Scott said, they shift their meeting every month to a different location. But the bigger problem is that they operate in almost complete secrecy. They have a committee structure that's protected by state law, and everything is decided in committee. Then they come to the board meetings and they don't openly discuss anything. And they are controlling millions of dollars.
That sounds very democratic.
It's not. And
they could easily have their meetings at Carnegie where you could go on to Cider and watch them.
Mm-hmm.
I've suggested that to them. Of course, they don't support that at all.
Yeah. And there's a lot of other boards like the Ethics Commission. I've often felt that that's a kind of a kind of a kangaroo court. The mayor appoints the ethics commission, and then the city attorney is the advisor of the ethics, because they need a counsel, they need a legal, they have a lawyer on the ethics commission, but in his capacity as a volunteer, he can't really tell the rest of the commission what to do. So the city attorney, who's supposed to be the defender of the city charter, he pretty much sits on the ethics commission and tells them how to vote. And he's also appointed by the mayor. So if there's any ethics complaints against the mayor, there's been several since he's been mayor, it always gets thrown out. And it's usually an anonymous vote. And it seems kind of strange to me that a commission that is appointed by the mayor gets to decide whether the mayor is doing something wrong or not. It's shady all around, and I've been to a couple of the meetings, and one example was recently, and this is just the kind of power that the mayor has over this group to show you. The city gave $500,000 to the indoor tennis place. Well, Heather's been talking about wanting this place for a long time, and he's known for a long time that this place is going to get built. So he came to the city, or his wife came to the city, whatever, and asked for this $500,000. And it's going to be privately ran by them. So the city is not going to own the facility. We're just going to give them $500,000 so they can buy tennis rackets or whatever. And later on, he decides that he wants to give a big donation to the thing. Well, everyone knew all along he was going to donate money to the facility. But he had to go to the ethics commission to get permission because he wants to put his name on it. I don't know if you guys, a lot of you know this, but he's putting his name on a facility as a city mayor that's getting public funds. And so he wanted to be on the up and up, so he went to the ethics commission. Well, he called him the day before. This is the other thing that's shady about it. He calls him on a Tuesday. On a Wednesday, they decide they're going to have a Thursday meeting. He walks in with his family, says, we want to put our name on here, is that okay? They go, yes, that's fine. And so that's what I'm talking about, how there's a lot of conflicts. It's a matter of changing the charter. You know, the ethics commission should really be appointed by all of the city council. They should all be able to throw their names in the hat and decide who's going to be on there. But like I said, the city charter gives, it's called the Home Rule Charter, it gives massive amounts of power to the mayor. It's almost, and I hate to say this because I'm being sarcastic here, but it's almost dictatorial. He basically says this is what we're going to do, and the council can say yay or nay, but that's about the only balance, check and balance they have that. Now, they do have veto power, but they have to have a 6-2 vote to overthrow anything he's done. And they've done it a couple of times on the paratransit thing where he wanted to just cut the funding and not have any kind of committee. So they overrode him there. But most of the time it only takes a 5-3 vote to pass something. And then he has a tiebreaker status. So if it's a 4-4 vote and he doesn't have any conflicts with the thing, he gets to break the tie. It doesn't happen, I think it's only happened once maybe with him. I can't even remember what it was. Oh, it was the event center location. He broke that tie. And then, but yeah, he's got a lot of power. And he's the city manager. So no city councilor has any authority over any city director. They can call him and ask questions, but they can't call up Mark Cotter, who's the public works director, and say, I want you to do this. Well, they can't do that. Mark can say, okay, nice suggestion, but my boss is Mike Ether. He appoints all of them. And the council only has, they have the city clerk's office, which is about 3 employees, and then they have a legislative guy and a budget guy, still don't know what they do. And and those are the only people they have control of firing and hiring. Otherwise, they have to totally depend on the communications of the mayor's office to know what's going on. And that communication is very little. And it not just Heather, Munson did it a lot too. Munson never gave the council any information when he didn't want to. He doesn't have to. That's the other thing. There's nothing forcing him to do so. They can ask him for it, but he doesn't have to give it to him. There was a great example last week when they were talking about the siding issue, and they have this report that you and I paid for, $5,000, but the council hasn't seen it. They haven't seen one word of it, and they won't give it to him. And it's sometimes difficult for the councilors to do good work and vote intelligently on something because they don't have the information. Well, some of them do. Some of them are in the inner circle. So some of them get to have little private meetings with the mayor, and and that's okay with state law. They can do that. They're one-on-one. That's perfectly okay. But there's also a lot of loopholes, and the city attorney, he's really good at finding them. So.
Why do you think that the council has not asked for an executive session to see that contract?
Well, Kermit did ask for one last Tuesday. And
But I didn't see that.
The city attorney agreed to it, and then the council chair, Dean Karski, said he didn't feel there was a need because there was first they tried to say there was no report, and now they're saying there's a partial report. So, but this is the kind of things they run into all the time is what they say.
Scott, I was at that meeting, and Karski said it was up to the city attorney if they had an executive session. And I asked Dr. Staggers about that, and he said that blew his mind. You don't know why Karski even said that.
Yeah. So there's a lot of information. I've told people though that there's one thing the city runs pretty decently is they have a lot of controls in place. In other words, they have a lot of things in place where employees can't screw up. Just like anybody, any corporation or anything like that. There's a lot of things in place where if a city employee makes some kind of mistake on something financial or something, there's things in place that we have a really good city auditor. He's been with the city, I believe, almost 30 years. He reports to nobody. He works independent. He's one of the few city employees who works by himself. The mayor cannot tell him what to do. The city council can't tell him what to do. His job solely is to look at the books. And he also has supreme authority over the books. If he decided to walk into the building permit office and said, I need to see this document from May, whatever, they have to give it to him. So he's got quite a bit of power. And it's good because he's the auditor. He's the guy he's got to make sure the books are running good. And he's a pretty smart guy too. And he's got his staff, and they all are under him and kind of controls that. The controls are good in place. And financially, it's hard to say how well the city's doing. We have a $400 million debt, but on the other hand, we have a good bond rating. And we have surplus, but we have debt. And it all depends on how you look at your personal finances. Personally, I don't like to have a lot of debt. Some people don't have a problem with it. So I've always looked at this as, is the city doing good? Well, yeah, I guess on one hand you can say it's doing well because we have great bond rating and we're paying our bills and everything. But on the other hand, we have a $400 million debt hanging over us. That's not good because what you're doing is you're taking a lot of our tax money that is collected and you're not putting it towards infrastructure, recreation. You're putting it towards a bond payment. And a lot of people don't know this, but though that the event center is going to cost us $117 or something like that, our final price tag, it's like buying a house, like a mortgage, is $180 million. So there's about $60 million there that we're paying in interest on an entertainment facility. This isn't sewers and utilities and stuff like that. The city changed this a couple years ago. They used to take CIP money, they still do, to fix the sewers and stuff like that. CIP money comes from, we get 2 pennies. We get the 6 cent. We do 6 cents. State gets 4. We send everybody who has a business has to send all of their money, the whole 6 cents, to the state. Then the state decides, it's kind of corrupt in a way, because the state doesn't have to tell the municipality anything. They just say, here's your check for your 2 pennies once a month, and that's what it is. And there's no real bookkeeping going, I mean, there's bookkeeping going on, but the city doesn't have any authority to look at the state's books to say that they're collecting this tax fairly. So anyway, we get these 2 pennies, and one of them is for operating. It can only be spent on running the city, cops, compensation, employees, stuff like that. The other penny is used for infrastructure. Well, the city decided they were tired of taking the second penny, CIP, and using CIP money. They want to use it more in entertainment, indoor pools, event centers, bike trails, parks, whatever. So they decided to raise everyone's water rates and everything, and they created this thing called an enterprise fund. So anytime you pay your water bill, or your sewer bill, that's an enterprise fund. So that money goes into a special fund that's only supposed to be used to fix the pipes. Now, it makes sense, and it's a good concept. The only problem is that they're not really keeping it. I looked at this budget this year, and while they say the enterprise funds are used primarily to fix the pipes, and they are, they're also still taking money from the CIP to fix pipes too. So it's we were kind of sold a false premise here, how the money goes around. And then there's this third penny, is the entertainment tax. And that goes to all kinds of crazy things. That's a tax you don't have to pay if you don't want to. If you don't eat out, you don't go to movies, you don't do any of that stuff, you don't have to pay the tax. But
So that third penny is the extra 1% sales tax on,
when you go out to dinner
yeah,
or entertain, anything like that, any kind of entertainment, that's what it is. There's also another tax that was created last year by the city that I approved. I kind of approved of it. I thought it was a good idea because you've traveled, they tell you your hotel room is $80 a night, and then you get your bill and it's $110 because you have to pay for parking and you got to pay for this. And then there's always a room tax. Now they just started this, and when it was first proposed, they proposed only the hotels who wanted to participate could participate, and that slowly got thrown out the door. But I think, and Cheryl, you might know, I think if you're under a certain occupancy, like if you're a tiny family-owned hotel, you don't have to collect this tax. But it's really small. I think it's 50 occupancy or something like that. There's a lot of tiny little hotels in Sioux Falls. And so they take this money from them, and it goes directly to the CVB, that's the Convention and Visitors Bureau, and they must use the money on marketing. And that's it. They can't, but there's been people picking at them trying to get this money. It's really funny. The tax was created last year or 2 years ago. And there's already,
the mayor's wife.
Yeah, including the mayor. So there's already people picking at this. The mayor's wife tried to get some of the money to promote people to donate money to the indoor tennis center. And the CVB board said, go away. That's not what the money's for. The money is for promoting Sioux Falls. That's what we use it for. And which then happened, several board members' appointments were not reinstated. I think it was 4. So that's what I'm trying to say, the kind of power the mayor has over certain things, when he wants to. Somebody asked me the other day, and I think it was a great question, what as citizens can we do to stop any elected official, our city councilor, mayor, anybody from doing these kind of things? And the only thing I can think of we really need to revoke the city's charter. It needs to go back to the old way, I think. But the one thing you can do is show up to meetings, be very vocal. They don't like that because those things are recorded and they're there for perpetuity. I mean, I've watched movies that are council meetings that are 12 years old. They're still there. You can watch them. That's one thing, is be very vocal and make sure you do it in a public square like public testimony. And be polite, don't be libelous, but then, unless the charter changes, there's not really much we can do. The mayor has accomplished a lot compared to Hanson and Munson. He's also spent a lot of money. He's increased our taxes and our fees a lot. He's used a very strong arm way of pushing things through. He's from the business world, where board of directors makes a decision, you get moving on it the next day. Government doesn't work that way because you have a public to answer to. And he doesn't like that. And he finds any kind of loophole that he possibly can to get things done. Now, does government work slow sometimes? Yes, it does. But there's a reason why that is. It's because they're looking out, they should be looking out for your tax money being spent wisely. The sighting on the event center is a prime example of ramrodding something too fast and doing something too hard and trying to do it on the cheap. That's what happens when government does things too fast and isn't transparent in what's going on. The worst part about that is it's going to cost all of us. You know, the people making decisions, this is not going to cost them anything. It's ultimately going to be us. That's the other thing about, you know, whether you're for or against the event center or whatever. The one thing that a lot of people don't know about it is we're going to be making I think it's a $10 million a year bond payment on that place. There were suggestions before the vote that any profits, you know, they're getting sponsorships, they're doing shows, they're bringing in money. Any extra revenue, instead of going to the promoters and to the SMG, the management, or the performers, any extra money should go towards paying down our bond. And see, that's the funny part about the events that a lot of people don't realize is that, well, number one, we're making the mortgage payment on it. Number two, we have to pay to get into the building. I mean, you know, we're making the mortgage payment.